4:58 a.m., outside Atlanta, in a new subdivision that isn't finished yet. Miles walks through the shell of a house he's paid to guard overnight. Bare studs, exposed insulation, a plastic tarp snapping in the wind like a loose flag. His flashlight catches copper pipes stacked in a corner, already tagged with a red "Do Not Remove" sticker. On the kitchen subfloor, someone left a folded blueprint weighed down by a framing hammer. Miles sets his thermos down, opens the blueprint, and realizes the house has a plan more detailed than his life. In the dark window, his faceless white head stares back, smooth, blank, unreadable. The radio crackles. "Watch the copper." Miles doesn't move. He keeps looking at the blueprint. Miles turns his apartment key and the lock sticks. He gives up with a soft clack. He drops his flashlight on the counter and steps around a takeout bag that still smells sweet and stale. A couch faces a silent TV like it's waiting for orders. His boots leave dark prints on the linoleum. The sky outside turns gray, but the room stays dim. He opens the fridge water, a sauce packet, nothing else, then shuts it and listens to the building creak. The blueprint is still in his hand. He didn't notice he carried it home, and that is how the night shift follows him inside. Miles spreads unopened envelopes across the counter and pins them flat with a coffee mug. A rent increase notice sits on top. A thin bank statement slides out and the numbers look calm. He squares the corners like he can straighten the week. A ceiling fan clicks as it turns. He finds small charges that repeat every month, quiet and polite. He circles them until the ink bleeds through. He flips the page and writes one word: waste. Then he realizes thoughts don't change bills. Miles drags plywood from the closet and the edge scrapes the wall, leaving a pale line. He sets it on 2 milk crates and presses down until it stops wobbling. The bench is crooked, but it exists. He shoves the couch back until it bumps the wall like furniture being evicted. Dust lifts in the slanted light. He places the framing hammer on the plywood, then the blueprint beside it. The TV remote stays on the cushion, stranded. The room stops being a living room and becomes a sight. And now he has to draw a boundary. Miles sets 3 glass jars on the bench, the clink sharp in the quiet. He labels them with masking tape, materials TOOLS waste. A cheap level taps the glass as it slides. Through the walls, a leaf blower starts and whines without apology. Miles empties his pockets, receipts, coins, the bent keyring, and a loyalty card. Each receipt goes into a jar like evidence. By the end of the day, waste has weight. By Friday night, it has a sound. He tips it over and the receipts spill like paper snow. And he finally sees the total in a language he can't ignore. Miles slides a game console across a pawn shop counter and the plastic squeaks on glass. The clerk plugs it in without looking up, lit by fluorescent tubes that drain the air. A small TV flickers behind him, muted. Miles watches the loading screen and remembers the hours, not angry, just counting. The number is lower than he wants, close to what he needs. Miles nods. The cash feels thin in his palm. Outside, the air is damp and smells like exhaust after rain. He puts the cash under the blueprint like a down payment. That night, he circles a class in a course catalog, and now he has to pass the first gate. Miles walks a community college hallway that smells like sawdust and floor polish, gripping a folder that keeps slipping. He watches through a classroom window as older students bend conduit on a metal table, hands moving like they trust the bend. A teacher taps a ruler sharp, clean. Miles looks down at the enrollment form. It asks for employer information. It asks for a schedule. The paper is calm, but it's asking who owns his hours. His phone vibrates with a voicemail about easy overtime. Miles doesn't open it. He presses the folder tighter, because the form isn't paperwork, it's a decision. Miles sets his phone face down under the blueprint on the bench. The voicemail still exists. He can feel it through the table. He presses a nail point into the wood, leaving a mark. Then another, a row, a calendar that doesn't need a screen. The room is quiet except for the fridge hum and distant traffic. He peels off a day pass sticker and it tears, leaving glue. He rubs at the residue until his thumb hurts. Then he writes his class time on scrap cardboard and tapes it above the bench. It's just paper, but it blocks the door in his head, and the pressure shifts. Miles steps into the half-built house before dawn and the air is cold enough to sharpen him. The keys jingle too loud in the empty framing. The tarp snaps again, the same sound as before, but now it feels like a signal. The radio crackles. Copper theft in the next block. Stay alert. Miles sweeps his flashlight over the stacked pipes with the red sticker, then over the blueprint on the subfloor. He sets the thermos down. He unclips his keys and places them on a stud. Metal taps wood. Final. He walks out past the doorway and doesn't look back. The sun hits the framing like exposure, and then he finds out what leaving costs. Miles opens his mailbox 2 days later and pulls out a pay stub that is lighter than it should be. The rent notice waits on the counter. The apartment is warmer because the heater ran all night and the air is dry. Miles lays the pay stub on the bench beside the jars and the blueprint. He doesn't panic. He measures. He returns a bag of impulse groceries and watches the cashier scan items back out of his life under harsh store lights. The refund prints and he drops the receipt into materials. He sells another small thing he likes but doesn't need. The money isn't freedom, it's lumber, and the build hurts more when it's working. Miles mounts a cheap pegboard and the screws squeal as they bite into the stud. He hangs his tools in straight lines: level, tape measure, utility knife. He pins a paper calendar beside them like a framing schedule. He marks class nights with thick ink, work nights with a thinner line, a boundary like a fence. When his supervisor calls again, the ringtone is too loud in the small room. Miles lets it ring while he tightens a screw. When it stops, he sends one sentence: "I'm not available those nights." No explanation, no apology, and now the world answers back. Miles wakes before his alarm on a Monday and reaches for his boots first. The floor is cold. The window glass is fogged at the edges. He pours water into his thermos, caps it, and sets it beside the blueprint. He taps today's square on the calendar with his knuckle. He packs a small bag: notebook, pencil, gloves. His phone stays face down on the counter. Outside, the parking lot is slick from rain, and a car door slams with a hollow echo. A message lights his phone anyway. "Can you pick up a shift tonight?" Miles doesn't answer. He laces his boots. He locks the door and leaves with the bag. The message can wait. The schedule can't, and that rule has to survive tomorrow. Months later, Miles stands in the same one-room apartment, but it doesn't feel like storage anymore. The bench is level. The jars are still there, but waste is lighter, quieter. Tools hang in straight lines. The calendar is full of marks that look like beams. The blueprint is unfolded and pinned flat, corners held with tape. Miles runs a finger along the drawn rooms. He doesn't romanticize them. He reads them like instructions. The world still prefers him small, dependent, easy to steer. It always will, but the plan in his hands isn't someone else's. Freedom doesn't arrive, it gets assembled. If this story helps you see the structure, subscribe and come back for the next build. And remember, if you don't build it, you live inside it.